This is a snappy little dude. Who knew 95 horsepower could feel like this?
Well, hey guys, how you doing? Now, if you listen very close, you could probably hear some thunder in the background, which is a very welcome sound out here. But by the looks of it, we're probably not going to get any rain coming our way. Oh well, at least it sounds nice, right? Anyway, if you watched the last video, we kind of got this car running again-ish. You know, you got to baby it, you got to feather the old throttle. I'm going to continue to play with it, and if we do anything major, if I really need to break down the carburetors or anything, I'll bring you along, don't worry. The Super Power Glidomatic Expialidocious was shifting great. You saw that in the very first video when I brought this home. I mean, it just slams into the gears. Power glides, they're just very difficult to destroy. They just keep going. The fluid in this thing looked brand new. Not worried about that at all. So I'm going to turn my attention to the brakes because I really need this thing on all fours. So we're going to dig into here. We're going to clean them up, go through them, repair what needs to be repaired. Then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you guys a little surprise, a little treat, I guess. We're going to put the tires and wheels back on it, and hopefully it ends up looking pretty good. So let's get busy at the master cylinder to begin with. Now, I've been into the trunk area here. I've swept, I've vacuumed, I threw my extra parts that I have so far in here, but the main event here, I guess we could say, is the master cylinder. You can see the mud down in the bottom, which is normal. Don't know yet if it's any good. That's what we got to find out. Now, I have every intention of converting this one day to a dual master cylinder. For right now, like I said, I want to get it back on all fours. Want to get back down on the ground. I can move it in and out of the shop. We can start driving it. You know, if it was just me, I absolutely have no qualms about four-wheel drum brakes. They're as safe as anything. I don't care. The master cylinder is a different issue when I get the kids involved. My wife really loves Corvair, and I know she's going to want to drive it. I get her involved. Then it starts becoming worth it to convert over to a dual master cylinder. If it was just me, I drove cars from the 60s for, you know, the first 5-10 years of my driving as a young man. Never thought about it once, never had a single problem. You just got to keep things maintained. You know, if your hoses are 50 years old, maybe you ought to replace them. Then you won't have a blowout. Then having a single master cylinder isn't really an issue, is it? Anyway, Super Power Glidomatic. I'm from Nacogdoches. Okay, I have my magic silver spoon of nastiness here, and I'm just going to get, you know, do what comes naturally. Try to get all the gunk out. Yummy!
No, seriously? That is so gross.
Next, I'm going to slip off the line. I already broke this off last night, so there we go. I mean, I broke it free. I didn't break anything. There we go. Oh, come on. Regular wrench. Now, I've really hesitated to show you the next step I'm going to do because the use of the specialty tools, I mean, I've been through training and school and just studied this stuff for years to get to where I am today. I'm not just a flash-in-the-pan YouTube cowboy hotshot. What I have here is a can with string. Now that I got her pretty well cleaned out, I'm going to put a little bit back in. And I'm just going to slowly pump it with the brake pedal and just flush this through. I might do this a few times. Take it really easy. We'll have a geyser there. Well, what I was afraid of, I think, is unfortunately true. I think everything is just dried out. I think the cups are dried out, perhaps, and fluid's just leaking past them. I get air bubbles through the vent hole, but the compensating port, I even stuck a torch tip cleaner down into it, and I believe I got it to go down through it. But we're just not getting any fluid moving in any direction. So I may have an internal leak and a blockage. I don't know. So where I go from here, obviously I'm going to take this off. Not sure I can even find a rebuild kit for this particular one, or do I just move into the dual master territory right away? I've got to figure that out, and we'll get back to you. Flash in the pan YouTube cowboy hotshot. So overnight I left fluid in it. I left my can with string on there in case it actually did bleed a little, and gravity bleed, let's say. When I got back today, there was fluid down in the can, so I knew something had gotten through. What I should have done yesterday, when I got back, I contorted my body enough to reach around and put my thumb over the port, at the same time messing with the pedal, working alone here, or just gotten help yesterday. But that really pumped up the pressure inside there. So I'm of the opinion that we're up and running. Now I found a bleeder fitting. So when I go in here and pump it now, it's working great. It feels good. I mean, as good as it can feel under this situation. So I'm going to do this a while, put clean in, do it again, and we'll just keep flushing it until it stays clean. Okay, we've got nice clear fluid in the reservoir, so we're good there. I'm just going to leave a little bit down in there to keep it wet. I've got a plug in the bottom, and we're just going to close this up. Put some kind of catch pan under there. That won't hold much, but if we get a drip every now and then, it'll do the job. Now the rest of the brake parts that I think I'll need should be getting here today, so it won't have to wait long in this condition. And then we're just going to start in on everything else here in a minute for you. And in the meantime, I'm going to wipe down because it's about the worst stuff you can get on paint, and we don't have much to spare anymore. So I'm going to wipe this down, and I'll see you in a bit. Now, as for actually rebuilding the brakes, probably just going to quickly gloss over that with you here. In the past year and a half, I've gone through 48 Chevy drum brakes, 66 C20 drum brakes, and 62 Corvair front drum brakes. And if you've done drum brakes on a Chevrolet at all within like a 50-year time span, on any model, you pretty much know how to do them on every model. They pretty much just kept to the same configuration, same idea, same thought, same school, whatever you want to call it. So if I come into anything that rears its ugly head that might be of interest, I'll show you. But otherwise, we're going to hit warp speed here for a little bit, and we'll get back together at the end. So the brakes are all apart, got my wheel cylinder out. I typically still rebuild them if they are rebuildable. If I think they're rebuildable, I guess, and I can find kits, and I found kits, so I'm going to rebuild them. Well, the first extracurricular activity we're going to have to do here, other than just doing a brake job, is new lines. New steel lines along the top of the arms, as you can see here. These are pretty crunchy, and well, they just need to be buried because they're done, and you want to do that before they start to stink. So, gonna have to make new lines. Now, one of you, during the previous video, I made a fuel line. At least one of you really lamented the fact that I did not show how I do that. So I'm going to do that on one line real quick. There's some preliminary things you need to know. First of all, you want to get nice and warmed up, limbered and loose. Secondly, you want to stay nice and hydrated. I really recommend embracing the fizzy prune. And thirdly, you want to be as comfortable as you can when you do this job. So we see here my entire lineup of tools, which really isn't that much, that I use when I am making steel lines. This bender I actually got probably only a year ago, and I almost never use it. I still prefer this oldie, and I've had all the rest of these probably for a couple decades. The bender I turn to is a KD 2517. Just, you know, you can't get more simple than that. Double flaring tool kit, that's an OTC 4503. I don't think I'll have to use that on these brake lines. And then I just have a simple little, this is even an Empire little pipe tubing cutter. Works great. I've had that for a couple decades too. Still going strong. So what I usually do, have a pencil also. Now this line on the right hand side was actually smashed down against the arm, so I may need to play with it a little bit once I get it on the car. But usually what I do is I bring the old line, put it on the bender, and just get an idea of where I need to start. Center of the curve is about there. And sometimes, you know, not having original tooling, you can't help but make a little bit different radius sometimes. But I think I'm pretty much going to go for a 90 degree here. A little bit more yet. Yeah, it's getting close. And you got to expect to adjust this once you're at the car. Okay, then there's a second bend. Right here. So that looks like about a 45, and then just a slight bend. So I'm just going to do the same thing here. Slight bend. Yeah, let me go clean this sticker off real quick. So if I line up my old one and I look at my angle of the end I've already bent, I can see it's shooting off a slight degree above 90. And I mark that with a pencil. I marked this where that was with a pencil, so I'm going to mark my new tube at the same place. Get that right there. Make sure my rotation is, was it up or down? It's up. Okay, then just bend this. Looking good. It's nice and parallel. When I hold it like that, nice and parallel along there. Then we have a sharp bend. Now I can't use the KD to bend because this bend is too tight, but it looks like I can use the support little mandrel thing on this thing, perhaps, if I can figure it out. These are obviously not made to size. That is way wider than our tubing. So I'm going to stick some string line in there from the old weed whacker. You know, and you can actually fill this thing with sand or powdered sugar or whatever you want and bend it without a bender, and they'll bend, and it shouldn't kink on you. You just got to be careful. So top of my bend is about there. That's the back of it. Make sure my nut is in place here. Well, we're close. I thought I'd actually have a little bit extra tubing. This was a 1 foot piece of tubing, and worked out pretty good because I didn't have to cut it and re-flare it. Might be just a touch short, if anything. Pull our line out, and there we go. Now, fully expect, no matter what you're doing, you're being as patient and as good as you can be. I would still expect almost every single time to have to tweak it here and there. Just, you know, get the threads started and use a screwdriver and just gently pry and, you know, get it to where it needs to go. You're not bending these off of the original jigs, so you're not going to be perfect. Don't expect to be absolutely perfect, but you can get very, very close. So there you go, just a little bit of the techniques I use. And maybe sometime when I need to, we'll get into the cutting and the reflaring. Now when it comes to wheel cylinders, a lot of guys just buy replacements and away you go, and that's fine. But I thought it might be a little fun to see in real time just how long it takes me to rebuild one of these things. So I'm just going to let the camera roll. On this project, one of the resources I can still find rebuild kits easily is on rockauto.com. So for the, I forget which way it went, the fronts or rears, one kit was just under $3, the other was like $6. And also on Rock Auto, just replacement cylinder assembly, you're in excess of $15. Or you can compare it to a parts house for a Corvair. You know, I don't know what your application is if you run into this, but you're paying for a rebuilt wheel cylinder $35. So let's just see how long it takes me to rebuild this thing. And there you go. I don't know at the moment what that ended up being, what kind of time that took, but you judge for yourself the money you pay and how much time it takes, what's worth it to you. And, you know, cool old Delco Moraine, probably original wheel cylinder. So I'm going to give you just a brief update here, catch you up. I've got new rubber hoses on all four corners. On the rears, new steel lines. You just saw me make those. Rebuilt wheel cylinders on the rear, new shoes, new hardware. Those of you that have been around since, well, for a while, may recall rebuilding the front end on the 62 Corvair. I bought hardware kits just to get these blue springs for the front end of that 62. So I had hardware kits sitting around and had everything I needed, so that was great. On the front end, the shoes were at least 50% there, and they were actually still coated with gold CAD plating. Well, I won't bother getting it off there, but so that was good. I scraped 60 years of crud and grease and everything else off the upper control arms to excavate the upper ball joints, the grease zerks. Put a new one in here, but I've greased the entire front end. I'm going to get under there with you yet and redo the pitman arm bushing because there's quite a bit of play in that, but the entire front end is greased. I've got the line back on up here, a master full of fluid, so I'm just going to start back here and start bleeding brakes. Working alone, I usually just gravity bleed them, so just keep sure make sure you keep fluid in the master. Obviously, start at the farthest wheel from the master. You'll have to follow your lines depending on what you're driving. Usually right rear would be the farthest. And just start bleeding there, then go to the next farthest, and then work your way forward. And you'll get it just fine on your own, or if you have a fancy vacuum sucker machine, you can use that too, obviously. Oh, and I set the shoes, the adjustment pretty close. Since these have automatic adjusters, I will just let it adjust itself to where it wants to be in the end. You can use a gauge. I have a couple of them here. You set it to your drum diameter, and then you set your shoes to just below that diameter. But honestly, doing it just by feel, taking the drum on and off, works just as well. So now if you are working alone and you want to try gravity bleeding, or maybe you already have and you're saying that takes way too long, or it doesn't seem like anything ever happens, what you actually want to do is go ahead and crack the farthest wheel cylinder or caliper, whatever you're working on. Come up front, give the pedal a few very slow and easy pumps, and fill that cylinder or caliper up. You know, it's going to take a while for that thing to fill up. So just do that. It'll start bleeding out of that cylinder then. Obviously keep checking your master. Just work your way around doing that. And then go back to where you started, crack them open again, and don't pump. And you should have flow. Then you just let it bleed for a couple minutes, and if you watch it, you'll still see air bubbles popping out. But give it a few minutes, let it bleed till you got solid fluid. Go through all four again, and you'll be good to go. Just like I did. I've been doing it for years. I grew up in a shop where my grandpa was working alone a lot of the time, and that's just what he did most of his life, so it works. Alright, I've got my pitman arm bolt out here, so that's fine. I'm going to dig the rubber bushing out. Should come out somewhat easily. I was looking for an oil filter bolt. If you remember, I needed a new one of those, because someone absolutely trashed this one with a vice grip. Ended up on a website called Mike's Corvair Parts, something like that. And they had, I found the bolt, oil filter bolt, a salvaged one, but they also had these nylon bushings on their website that they claim are better than the old original style. So I'm gonna try it. I'm guessing the shoulder goes in the top end. We'll see how the bolt acts with that. And where'd my castle nut go? There it is. But I don't know. I mean, I just have no experience here with this. So, on a 62 front end, I think I bought a new old stock bushing from Clark's Corvairs, and that's what I put in that one. So here's my problem with this nylon bushing. So I pushed the rubber out. Now the steel sleeve is still inside the center link here, which is fine. I think it needs to be in there because this fits in there, albeit it fits pretty sloppy. Now, one thing I can say is that the bushing fits the bolt really nice and snug, but I don't like the fact that this is nice and sloppy here. My second question is, when I put this with the shoulder on the top and I run my bolt in, I have a gap. I don't know if you can see that. I have a gap under the head of the bolt, and this top is all nice and snug. If I do it the other way around, this is all nice and snug up against the shoulder, but I have a gap up top. Everything tightens down nice, I just have a gap up here. I don't know. If someone out there does know for sure, please let me know. I like how it fits. It seems to fit a little better this way, but I have my doubts. So if anyone knows for sure, please let me know. I'm going to install it like this. I can run it in and out of the shop when I need to, at least on a temporary basis. But we're going to get this buttoned up. I know I have a steering seal on the sector shaft, gear shaft thing leaking, but I'm not going to even pay attention to that right now. So this should get us moving in and out of the shop. Seriously, if you do know, let me know. Someone left a comment, I think on the first video with this car, that a guy could just put tubes in these tires and you'd be fine. Well, I think it'd look a little bit like Lisa Douglas's hotcakes on the stove, to be honest with you. So I promised you I'd show you rims and tires that I got. So the original size would have been 6.5 by 13s. Most of you probably already know this, and the modern equivalent is 185/80 13s. You can still find them. Basically, you have one company that makes them, Maxxis. They make them in a white wall or black wall, depending on which way you put it. They are $130 a piece, and your availability may be limited depending on how stock is. So I wouldn't have a bit of a problem running 13s, but the price and the availability are a concern. I think you can go down in size, in sidewall height, and find some sizes there as well. But most everything you're going to find in a 13 online is trailer tires, which you do not want to run on a car. Your loads are just completely different. But I was reading an article from, I think, from the Corsa Society, the club, on their website, had a very good article on what sizes you can play around with as far as wheels and tires on your Corvairs and keep them on the road that way. Basically, if you go up to a 14, that opens your options up significantly. Your price goes down significantly. In fact, I spent half the price on 14-inch tires than I would have on the 13s. And you can find all kinds of brands and really play around with sizes. So they recommended for up to 65 Corvairs, a good replacement size is 195/70 14s, which is what I bought. I found them in a Tornell Classic brand, so it kind of looks like a classic tire here. And I had a full set of 60s Chevy 14x6 rally rims, probably off a Chevelle, I would imagine. I ran these type of rims on my 64 Impala, and I just had a full set laying around. So that is what I went ahead and got. I got them mounted and balanced, all painted up. Now I know these aren't original, but honestly these would have been around the same time as the car was around, and you know, I still need to figure out what I'm going to do with center caps and beauty rings. I think I may have most of what I need. I just need to find it. I think my beauty rings are pretty beat up, so I don't know what I'm going to do there yet, but I think it's going to look pretty good. I will definitely keep the 13s around. Maybe someday we'll even go back to them. But right now, price and availability is what's driving this project. So this is what I'm going to put on. I hope you approve. And I just kind of thought white wall versus black wall, especially on a 500, white walls just kind of look a little out of place because it was the cheap car, you know. So anyway, we will throw these on, and that's what we're going to run with. I'm gonna pop this back out for you. I'm getting a quick and dirty education on the little differences that make up a Corvair. And for those of you who have never worked on one as well, I'll just share some of these things. So this is our front left hub. This is our speedometer cable, and that was kind of paralleling the brake hose in the wheel well there, if you didn't notice that. This little wishbone shaped clip that I just got nice and dirty, that replaces your cotter pin on your castle nut here on the spindle, because obviously you can't have a cotter pin going all the way through the axle if you've got a speedometer cable running in there. So I've got this adjusted, and this just goes down into one side of the hole there, which I can't get now. Tap it with the right tool. Well, come on. There we go. And then your cap is your the driving force of your cable, so it's got a square hole soldered on the inside of that cap there. So you've got to make sure you get that lined up. Feels like I got it. Still don't have a hammer here, so we'll just knock her on with a plier. Yeah, I'll get it. Oh. You know, when a guy's watching videos of other guys working on cars, you know what still amazes me just every time I see it? It's when they get out the cordless impact and just give it all she's got on the lug nuts. In the shop I grew up in and all my automotive schooling, that was no-no number one. You used a torque wrench. I mean, at least get a torque stick on that impact. But hey, their car. So I mentioned in an earlier video, I bought a used grill bar and I bought this lock cylinder. I don't even know where it is now. It was going to take an obscene amount of, I started grinding. I popped the bezel off the front of the cylinder, then the little key slot cover came out. I started turning it down on the lathe just to fit inside here, and I decided, you know what, I can use a screwdriver to undo the hood latch for now. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure this latch mechanism out. I have no idea where it needs to be. I'm going to tighten it down there. think I gave myself enough length there. Now, if I can find the thing here. That's going to be the only problem. Okay, load this down. Still not, better this time. Freeze on. Well, you get the idea. I'm going to keep playing with it. Now with this oil leak, I don't want to drive it too long, but I do want to get these brakes adjusted. Well, what happened there? Idle down now. Yeah, she shifted. Oh, what a... This is a snappy little dude. Who knew 95 horsepower could feel like this? Yeehaw! Just couldn't help myself. Man, that engine sounds good though. My speedometer cable's actually broken on the top end. It's hanging loose down here, so I got no speedo. I'm still gonna have to play around with those carburetors. It doesn't want to idle down. So I'm sure we'll end up rebuilding them eventually. Well, there you go, folks. 27 years, she's rolling. I wouldn't say she's the prettiest thing or the most reliable thing yet.
there's every possibility that my engine's on fire as I speak, but hey, we're gonna keep working on it. Please keep coming back around. I really appreciate you watching. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one.